Welcome back. I'm here with Student Publications Editor-in-Chief Paul Dower. Hi Paul, it's good to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the news that's been going around campus with the newspaper. The one that's on everyone's mind is the presidential search. So can you tell me who the 4 candidates are?
Yeah, so we have Dr. Brian DePoy, Dr. Michael Austin, David Brennan, and Dr. Kenneth Evans. And each of them sort of have their own unique perspective when it comes to being president at OCU. All 4 of them generally have ideas about expanding our online education options and generally getting involved with the OKC community, with each having their own spin and take on what that means. My personal, I'm keeping an eye personally on David Brennan and Dr. Kenneth Evans. I think they have very practical and very they have a set plan for what they want to do whenever they become when and if they become president. Very concrete plans for what their presidency will look like.
What are some of the questions that students have been asking these candidates?
Yeah, one of the major questions that students were asking were if each of the candidates would commit to creating an office of sustainability, and shifting OCU to more renewable energies. I don't think many of the candidates were able to commit to those, to creating an office and shifting OCU, mainly because they don't have access to information that, the access to information that they would need to know to be able to commit to that.
Right.
But they were able to, most of them said they were in favor of it. I don't think any of them outright dismissed that as not an option. So.
Yeah. So you mentioned your personal favorite, the one you're keeping some eyes on.
Mm-hmm.
Have we seen a campus favorite so far?
I haven't seen anything of the sort. I think from the students that I've talked to, the students that I've interviewed, it seems like a lot of them are keeping it sort of objective. They I haven't talked to anyone about their personal favorites, but from what it seems like a lot of people are leaning toward David Brennan, if I just had to go based on vibes. But that might be also my bias, but who knows? Yeah,
we'll just have to see where that takes us. So OCU Stripped is putting on Songs for a New World by Jason Robert Brown. So how are the performances planned out, like taking COVID precautions and things like that?
Yeah, so I think the School of Music in general has some of the more stricter guidelines when it comes to COVID restrictions. Mm-hmm. I think rehearsals, and that's not a slight toward them. I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But they have, they tape off squares on the stage to where actors stand in. Rehearsals are limited to a couple of cast members per rehearsal, up until I think Tech Week. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's generally how performances are being done nowadays. So yeah.
And are audience members allowed to sit in the audience, or is it just like online streaming?
I think it's primarily online streaming. I don't think there are many, if at all, audience members in person. I think there may be some for for the people doing the live streaming, right, and then some photographers, but I think primarily the audience is over Zoom.
Very interesting. OCU announced a new corporate relations office to help connect students to surrounding OKC businesses. How are they doing this? How are they connecting students to businesses?
Yeah, I think primarily it's through a company called Frank Franzi and Company, I believe is the name, and through that company they're getting in contact with local businesses in the OKC area, to see if they have internships, see if they have sort of more gruntish jobs for students to do, and yeah, just generally sticking out feelers into the OKC area to try to see what businesses are interested in.
And if students are interested in finding out more about this, how do they do that? Who do they reach out to?
Trying to remember. I'm not sure. I'm sure career services could definitely point them in the right direction if they want to get involved in that. The Office of Corporate Relations, career services is definitely probably the best way to go.
All right, very nice. Last thing we're going to discuss is the passing of Florence Birdwell. So, for those of you who don't know, can you tell us about who she was?
Yeah, so she was I think, professor of music and a voice coach / teacher who worked at OCU for nearly 70 years.
Oh, wow.
Very, very long time. She taught people such as Kristen Chenoweth and Kelly O'Hara, a lot of the people who went on to Broadway. And so, yeah, she has a very long-lasting legacy at OCU. I think she retired about a decade, 10 years or so ago, in mid to early 2000s. And yeah, she recently passed.
And how did alumni create like a memorial for her, or how did they pay tribute to her? Do you know?
Yeah, so some alumni I know got together over Zoom and sort of shared their experiences, talked about what Florence meant to them, how, and just shared stories, just reminiscing on the good old days at OCU and stuff.
So can you give us a sneak peek of what's to come for the paper?
Yeah, so in the future we're going to be covering the SGA elections. I know I'm going to be writing a story covering the candidates, each of their platforms, reaching out to them and seeing if they want to write a letter to the editor that we can publish online or in the paper. And I think we're actually going to hold that print issue a day, so we'll be printing on Thursday, so that way we can have front page who won the election, and it'll be cool. You know?
Yeah, that'll be super interesting. We'll have to look for that. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
If you want to see more campus news, check out mediaocu.com, and stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break.